How do you guys know, like, as far as like where to cap someone and their body weight? Like, because we're talking about gaining, but how much is too much? Like, where do we put that ceiling? How we cap it? What do we think about with that?
Yeah, I think about a lot, really, because there's a ton of context there, right? A ton of context. Because, I mean, naturally, if we're got a show that we're going to be thinking about, when's that show going to happen? You know, we got to make sure that, we're within kind of that striking distance of where we want to kind of start our prep positioning. It makes no sense to prep for a show, say in August, when you're right now 55 pounds over stage weight, or what we project to be your stage weight. The amount of muscle that you're going to lose on the way down is going to be significant, and you're not going to be very happy with your training performance. So yeah, if you're a bodybuilder, when's your show? We're going to have to cap this at some point. I have a gentleman that I'm going to be getting ready for a show in October, and we only are going to be able to gain from now to where he's at right now, which is arguably, I think, about 167 pounds. We're only going to be able to gain to about 173. And at 173, he's going to be about 10, 12% away from stage weight. We're going to need to start dieting back down again. So that's a cap for that particular person. But then another person, if they're not competing until 2024, I might try to push them to the point to where, what, let's get you uncomfortable here. Let's get you where you think you're fat. And then maybe we'll run a little cut. And then let's get you to where, your relatives think you're a little bit fat. When your mama says you're a little bit fat, because
I don't know about that one. Because my mom would overfeed me, and I have to tell my mom, okay, I can only eat so many plates of spaghetti, Mom.
Exactly, and that's why I want your mama to say that you're getting fat.
maybe your brother or your sister, but I don't know about moms or grandmas. We'll leave them out of the loop.
But yeah, if it's a ways off, I try to get people a little bit on the uncomfortable side to where they feel like, yeah, they're a little bit fat. And I mean, even people that are thinking, okay, I want to do this bodybuilding thing, and they send us their pictures. And if I see abs, they're gaining weight. I'm going to try like hell to talk them into gaining weight right now. I don't care if they want to get down to this body fat first before they're going to go up. I'm going to try like hell, because like Bruno said, that's a red flag to me. That's contradicting what you want to do in the long term. And I'll kind of somewhat tell the same story I did here with you guys, and kind of share a little bit of experience and kind of talk them out of, give them the reasons why I'm trying to talk them out of doing it. And then also I'll get my little crystal ball out, and I'm like, you know what, this is what my crystal ball is telling me right now. And my crystal ball is not always right, but a lot of times it is. You're going to get down to that body weight. Your abs are going to look great, and you're going to be disgusted with how skinny your arms and your legs look. That's what my crystal ball is telling me right now. And that's what I want to avoid, because that is contradictory to what is your long-term goal of getting on stage in 2025. And like you guys said, sometimes you just got to let them experience it. You got to let them smoke that whole pack of cigarettes, turn green, throw up, before they realize the smoking is bad for them, But yeah, tons and tons of context there. And hopefully that's kind of two opposite ends of the spectrum, as far as where I cap people and where they're going to get their body fat to.
Hey, you guys were kids in the 60s. Did they really do that?
In the 60s?
I'm not that old. I was born in 71. Come on, Berto.
Yeah, almost 60s, but no, man.
Man, shoot, I'd say I'll kind of how you push with leanness on the way down. It's like, okay, maybe, hey, you want... you look like your favorite, Gymshark model in his little underwear. I guess you'll go, but it's like, we're not ready for that yet, man. Like, let's go through a few of these fat loss phases, and you'll get closer every single time. I think sometimes, like, on the way up, you have to maybe negotiate that with them a little bit and see, especially if they're kind of getting in their own way, right? If you're like, I have a feeling you're just one of those folks that functions better, like, above 18% body fat. Like, everything's just going to click. Then maybe I won't get him there the first time, because like you could get adherence problems sometimes on the way up, where it's like, I don't think you're eating all your food, like, right? So, I think you play around with that a little bit. You bring him up, you bring him down. But one thing I think I've changed my mind on, like in recent years, is I do cycle through cutting and gaining phases a little bit more rapidly because almost regardless of where we're going, it's like, this ends at a certain point, right? At micro level, like you're dieting, it's like I know that I have my refeeds coming up. So I'm going to work really hard these next 2 days, hit my cardio, not, weigh my food the way I should be. It gets you through that. So sometimes like it's, say on the way up, you're like, okay, well, man, like I'm kind of uncomfortable. This is 5 pounds heavier than I've ever been. But I know that I have a cutting phase like in a month. So let me maximize this. So yeah, having I think a little bit more frequency and letting them practice a little bit more on both ends helps adherence.
I think it's a good idea, like to take people out of their comfort level or to go places where they've never been before. Even if, let's say, this person, maybe you think their top end is 190 where they're going to be most comfortable, but you push them to 195, then you truly know if in fact 190 or 195 is a better place for them. But if you're just throwing some arbitrary numbers in ahead of time and sticking to that and going just by like whatever their emotions are, like sometimes you have to just push people up a little bit higher.
Yeah.
And you'll learn like, okay, oh shit, 195 is actually too soft right now anyways for this person. So yeah, you have the cutting phase to go back on. But the next time you go up, at least you have a little bit more clarity on where you can take them or where they might need to be, because you're going to know at 195 what their performance was doing, what their recovery was doing, how they were handling life, how they were handling just how they felt in that body. So there's just a lot to be learned, but you ain't going to be able to learn if you don't take yourself there in the first place. So just a little bit of trial and error there can go a long ways to help set up the future.
Yeah. As a coach, you're doing those two things a lot. You're kind of, when it's more than what they can handle, it's like you're there to tell them, like, I think, I'm not saying you can't at some point handle this, but right now, maybe it's not the time. But then also the other way around, it's like you're also there to like, hey, I'm going to nudge you a little bit further than you would have on your own. And it's funny because usually you nudge them a little bit further. My experience with the bodybuilding coach, on the way up, you push them a little bit further than they like when it comes to weight gain. And it's usually on the way down that you're kind of like, I think you're going too far, man. Like, I really don't think you need striated glutes for your friend's wedding. True story, actually. True story.
Gotta look good in that suit.
I'm not saying names, but true story. So yeah. You're saying, Brad?
Well, I was just going to say, sometimes you learn if you can even get to the body weight that the coach is trying to get you at. I mean, there's been more than one time when I've tried to get a bodybuilder to an uncomfortable point to where they might feel that they're a little bit fat, and they can't get there. They can't eat that much food. They can't be any more inactive, because of how their life is. And they kind of learn, oh man, you know what? I really can't get fat. I can't get to the point to where I was thinking I would be fat, and I mean, I to be honest with you, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and sometimes I will just let people live there. And this kind of circles back to your question earlier, Jeff, about where do you cap that? Sometimes you just find that cap, accidentally. Well, coach, I've never been 203 pounds before, much less 205, and we find out your cap is like 198. You can't possibly eat any more food, and here I am telling you to eat spoonfuls of peanut butter and, protein in your tub of ice cream and, et cetera, to get you to gain weight. You know what? Here's our cap. Let's just ride here and train until that strategic point down the road when we do our mini cut or we start our pre-prep positioning, cut, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You learn what you learn. You know what? I can't get as fat as I thought I could.
Well, I mean, that person at 198, I mean, obviously if they can't eat any more food, they're well fed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Chances are the body fat's higher. They're well fed. So I'm sure their training's probably just going just fine. So they can probably hang out that body weight and still make gains.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, you think, supply and demand. Supply is definitely outpacing the demand. So you're in an environment to continue to make some gains. I think a lot of times too, like some people with the arbitrary numbers, they want to like I want to hit 200 pounds or, 180, whatever the number is. Like they try to force it when maybe they shouldn't. Because I think oftentimes too is like when we hit a number, it's either like I want to keep gaining or I want to go the other way. There's never a holding pattern in a sense. And oftentimes when we hit the number that we're trying to get in the gaining, it's automatically people will go, okay, now I'm going to cut. It's like, no, just hang out, just hang out there at that body weight, because now you're in that well-fed state. You know, you got the supply there. Take advantage of that and strike while the iron is hot. You know, give it some time, a few months, then run a cutting phase. So those are the scenarios I kind of see with some people. You know, it's more like on off switch. They have to be doing one thing or another, but they never think of like, hey, this just could be a dimmer switch. Mm-hmm. Just keep the light kind of lightly dimmed right now, and just keep doing your thing.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, when we do kind of hit that point, I like to run a couple different periods, different cycles of training during that period of time. You know, once we're at that new kind of PR body weight, I guess you might call it. If a person's never really done a true strength cycle with some fairly heavy loads and low reps, let's do it. Let's do a cycle of that. Let's do a couple blocks, you know, of just that, and find out what your strength really is, and maybe it's something that you haven't, you know, done before. Or if it's the opposite, you know, let's drive volume up here. Let's do some sort of a scheme here to get your volume really, really high with maybe sub-maximal loads, and run that for a block or two, and then run another strength block, you know, and let's just stay here the whole time and just kind of watch what happens.